So how about some news? There's a couple things in the news that have been interesting recently. One has been percolating around for a while, but I think it's worth mentioning and talking about those we haven't heard about, because this is kind of big news. If it happens, I have not been able to get any confirmation on the status of it. That is, Bureau of Land Management is raising fees. And what I heard when this first started getting talked about, they're raising fees at the LTVAs. Well, specifically, the proposal they floated, I think it was in September. Yeah, September last year, was to overhaul the business operation plans for a number of sites, and that included something like 20 camping areas in Arizona. And that does include long-term visitor areas, specifically those near Ehrenberg, Quartzsite, Oxbow, and Yuma, which is to say I think it's the Imperial Dam one, I think it is, down by between Kofa and Yuma. And then the La Posa, the big one that's very popular up around Quartzsite. So they note in this is a press release, a screenshot of a press release on BLM's website from September 6th last year. The BLM conducted a market analysis of current recreation fees statewide that reveals fee rates were below local market prices. The BLM has not updated business plans for our recreation sites to reflect market conditions in decades, said Gerald Davis, BLM Arizona Deputy State Director for Resources and Planning. I want to know if that guy can fit his entire job title on a single business card, or if he likes to have the title on the back of the card or something, because I'm not sure that'll fit. The updated plans would enable the BLM to improve services and amenities in order to ensure these sites provide the exceptional experiences that visitors to public lands deserve. Over the past 5 years, visitation to public lands in Arizona has increased from 4.9 million to 6.8 million. However, BLM's budget per visitor has not kept up with increased use and visitation. Those increases have caused wear and tear, Davis said. The BLM is seeking public input on proposed fee increases that would help us keep pace with the rising cost of operations and maintenance. So that one thing there, 4.9 to 6.8 million. I'm not surprised, because I have been in Quartzsite. We didn't go the last 2 years. Actually, we went as far as southern Nevada to Pahrump, and that was as far as we made it. I went over to like Death Valley and stuff, but didn't get down to Quartzsite. I'm not surprised, because in the 10 years I've been doing this stuff, Quartzsite has definitely gotten busier again. I talked to some of the old timers around Quartzsite. They'll tell you that it used to be busier, then it kind of slowed down, and it's picked up again. So I'm not sure. They're only showing these numbers for more recent years, but it has picked up. I'd never heard any numbers for how many people were going to LTVAs, though, and to the public camping areas around Quartzsite, because there are a bunch of 14-day sites as well that you don't have to pay at. Those are free, but you just have to leave after 14 days. So that was interesting, and I'm not surprised that they said the fees have not kept up. I've thought for years, I'm shocked that they have not raised the fees, because it had been at $180 for 7 months or $40 for 14 days for quite some time. So continuing on, this is out of the draft operations plan that they had created they released back in September. LTVA locations managed under California Desert District, El Centro Field Office, and Palm Springs Field Office are not included in this proposed business plan, as these sites are managed separately from YFO, that's the Yuma Field Office. A management decision has determined that the LTVAs in Arizona will follow their own fee structure. Starting September 1, 2025, fees and permits that previously applied to LTVAs in both offices will be managed separately. The individual special recreation permits for Imperial Dam and La Posa LTVA would be valid only for those locations and would not apply to the California LTVAs and vice versa. So that's another interesting point, and I had not heard anybody talking about that, because I think there's 7 LTVAs, the long-term visitor areas, down in Arizona and California in the desert, and they're just areas where they're managed as special use areas where you can get a longer term permit up to 7 months, September 15 to April 15. And if you can handle the heat, you can stay for 7 months for currently $180 for that season. But they're looking at raising the fees, and they did note in this though too, they're actually segregating that so that the ones in Arizona, La Posa and Imperial Dam, will be one fee, and then it'll be a different permit for a different fee for a different permit for the ones in California, the other 5, I think it is, that are over there. So you won't be able to go back and forth. And what a lot of people would do is they get their LTVA permit for $180, and they bounce around between several, up to all 7 of those different LTVAs, stay for a while in one, go get groceries, go to another one, stay for a while, and move around. And that would, you'd have to have two different permits under this new proposal. You would still be able to go between La Posa and Imperial because they're both under Yuma Field Office. So that's another change that I have not seen come up yet. I don't follow all the Nomad News stuff, so it's possible somebody's talked about it and I haven't heard it, but I have not heard about that previously. All right, continuing on here, and this is all out of the draft proposal, and this is, you can kind of see the part of the D there, the stamped draft across the PDF. This was released in September, and I have not been able to find any updates on this thing, if this thing's actually been enacted or if it's still in review. And if I ever do figure it out, I'll definitely let you all know. But the proposal increase, this is we're talking about dollars. The proposal increases current fees from $180 to $600 per long-term permit, and from $40 to $200 per short-term permit. It would also modify the short-term permit length to 14 days, from 14 days to 30 days. In addition, I haven't had anybody talk about this either, the BLM proposes to adopt a model to increase fees by 20%, then rounded, whenever consumer price index, not seasonally adjusted, rises by 20%. So they're not only raising the fees staggeringly, they're wanting to put in an automatic peg for a 20% increase anytime there's a 20% increase in consumer price index. So there's a part of that that actually makes sense to me, because I felt like they haven't updated the fees in a long time, and then things are getting neglected and maintenance is clearly not being done. What's a little concerning to me is that they're raising it so much all at once, because they didn't raise it for a lot of years. And so the 20% thing I get, but if you're going to $600 and then you're doing a 20% increase, that's still a hefty increase. Why not increase it 5% at a time or whatever? I'd make it a little easier for people to adjust. That's my question on that. Another page from the draft here under operating costs. I thought this was interesting too. LTVA operating costs include direct, indirect, and fixed expenses. That's not really a surprise. The BLM financial and business management system, accounting system, because it's a government, so we all have lots of acronyms here, provides the revenue and expense data for operating costs. In fiscal year 2024, the estimated operating cost for the LTVAs is $2.1 million and change. So that's a big program, and I do understand that these programs are supposed to be paid for by the people who use them. If you do hunting or fishing, for example, those fees are generally designed to cover the cost of administering those programs. So it's reasonable that those of us who want to camp at the LTVAs, and I have camped there several times. I've never stayed a season. I've used it as like a base camp and then gone from there and come and gone a little bit, and took advantage of the fact that they had like dumpsters and RV dump, which was free. So if you don't get there early, you might wait in line an hour or 2 hours, but if you get there early, you can dump for free. And when I had the trailer down there, that was a big deal. And of course, trash is a nice bonus as well. So the maintenance has been neglected, so I'm not surprised it's an expensive program to run. And I guess I'm a little surprised they're saying 2.1 million, because it's not like they're paying property taxes or anything. And they rely a lot on volunteers, and they claim to have ranger enforcement and stuff. I've personally never seen a ranger doing enforcement on the LTVAs, although I did hear of one once. So I'm not sure where all that money's going, and I did not take the time to try and drill into all that to see how that adds up. And here's this is their projected revenue. And I'm kind of curious the way they do this. They list to the left, the permit type, and then the second column, the number of permits issued in fiscal year 2024, 5,600 short term, 3,500 long term, and at 2024, third column's at 2024 revenue with $180 or $40 fee. They brought in a total of $849,000 in revenue from those permits. Under the new fees they're proposing, if they had the same number of permits issued, that would increase to $3.2 million, which is a quite substantial increase in fees. I would hope that actually does go to improving the facilities and the experience there, and staffing and maintenance and stuff. However, I think that's a little bit disingenuous to suggest that the fees are going to go up or that the revenue is going to go up that much, because I think it's pretty obvious if you increase your fees from $180 to $600, you're probably not going to have as many people getting permits. So I don't think the fees are going to go up that much. And this is the final point on the BLM thing here. Under their drafting, they noted their public outreach stuff. The outreach methods to share information on how to provide comments on the draft business plan and fee proposal during the public comment period include. And they had signs posted at the LTVA, public notices on recreation.gov and BLM.gov, a BLM news release, social media postings, blah, blah, blah. They got a lot of heat about this because a lot of people felt like it was sneaky. They released this in September. They ended the comment period, I think it was in middle of October. So, point being, most people who are going to Arizona for the winter aren't even there yet. So they put signs at the LTVA. They put notices on the BLM and recreation.gov websites. I don't know how many people are looking at those websites. Who looks at the BLM website unless you're trying to look up a campsite, maybe? And usually the information is deplorable. I get better information from other sources. By the way, shout out if you're looking for camping, free camping directory, or inexpensive camping directory, check out my Nomad directory. As my friend Tim has put that together, it is fantastic. It is my new favorite one-stop source for research when I'm looking for camping when I'm traveling and stuff. So if I don't know somewhere where I'm going, so check my Nomad directory. If I remember later, I'll put a link in the description for those who are watching after the fact. I did not remember it ahead of time. That's an off-the-cuff thing, but this irritated a lot of people because they're not in Arizona to see the signs at the LTVAs, and they're not looking at the Bureau of Land Management or the recreation.gov website to see this notice, and they're not subscribed to the press releases, so they're not getting it that way. So a lot of people felt like it was pretty underhanded the way they did this. They did the legally required public comment period, but they did it in such a way that most people, or very many people who would be interested might have wanted to comment, never had a chance to comment because they never knew about it until after it was too late. And like I said, I have not been able to find out. I have looked into this. I can't figure out if this thing's been adopted formally or not. I will try and follow up with that. I may actually check in with the Yuma field office and update you on that in a future video, see what they have to say about it, if it's been formalized yet, or if it's still just they're being thought about.